Good day, everyone. So today we're going to discuss about lesson 2, the chemical basis of life. So in this lesson, we are expected to learn about the major elements essential to life and describe their roles in biological molecules such as carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. And then we're also going to tackle between the difference of ionic, covalent, and hydrogen bonds and explain their significance and biological systems. 3. We're also going to learn the unique properties of water that make it vital for sustaining life. In the previous lesson, we have discussed that life is hierarchically organized from molecular level, cellular level, tissue level, organ system level, organism level, and higher levels. Higher levels is composed of the ecosystem, community, population, and the biosphere. So in order to really understand the chemical basis of life, we have to tackle about chemistry. And we're very familiar with this. What is matter? So it is said that all stuff is matter. Matter has mass. Matter occupies space. Okay, so we could say that matter occupies space and has mass. And the fundamental unit of matter is called atom. Okay, and the elements like hydrogen, helium, lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, and nitrogen, these elements are composed of different atoms. So we have hydrogen, the atom is H or hydrogen, and we have He, the atom is also helium. Okay, then we also have the term compounds. Compounds refers to a combination of elements. So for example, the element Na or sodium is combined with the element Cl or chlorine. So together they form NaCl. So please remember the difference between elements and compounds. Elements are different atoms. So for example, we have hydrogen atoms, helium atoms, carbon atoms, nitrogen atoms, oxygen atoms. They are only composed of different atoms. Then we have compounds, combination of elements. So we have combination of sodium, Na, and chlorine atoms. Next, we have elements essential to life. All life forms require 25 elements. Okay, so these are the elements found in the human body. But remember, we have the big four. Like I said, in organic chemistry, we have the big four, CHON. So C for carbon, H for hydrogen, O for oxygen, and N for nitrogen. So take note that this makes up 96% of the living matter. So if we're going to zoom in, the green elements are the common elements, right? We have the green ones, hydrogen, sodium, and we have potassium, magnesium, calcium. Then we also have carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and we have phosphorus, sulfur, and chlorine. Then how about the purple ones? We have the trace elements. Okay, the trace elements are composed of boron, fluorine, aluminum. Okay, then we have Si, this is silicon, and we have chromium, magnesium, iron, cobalt, copper, zinc, selenium, okay, molybdenum, cadmium. Okay, then we have Sn and I. Then all of the remaining elements are in color orange. Okay, then we also have, after the big four, we also have the little four. Okay, remember that the big four, CHON, makes up 96% of the living matter. Then how about the little four? Okay, we have the term P-cask. P for phosphorus, Ca for calcium, S for sulfur, and K for potassium. Okay, so remember that this little four makes up less than 3% of the living matter, while the big CHON makes up 96% of the living matter. Okay, trace elements. Okay, look at the trace element in purple. These are essential in small amounts, and it makes up at least more than 1% of a living matter. So here we have the elements and the percent of total body weight. For example, we have oxygen 65%, carbon 18.6%, hydrogen 9.7%, nitrogen 3.2%, calcium 1.8%, phosphorus 1.0%. Okay, but if we're going to look at CHON, okay, look at CHON. These four elements make up 96.5% of our body weight. Now, we have mentioned that trace elements are also essential for at least more than 1% in our body, right? So what happens if we have deficiencies in this trace element? So if we are deficient with iodine, so in humans, the effect of that will be hyperthyroidism, so caused by thyroid adenoma. So meaning the person has hyperfunctioning thyroid, and this will result to goiter. So we're very familiar with goiter, right? Then in plants, if there is iron deficiency, this will be the result. The darker one is the healthier leaf, while the other one, which has light colored leaves, are deficient in irons. So just like humans are also anemic, right? Ano mang anemic? It's because they also lack the trace element iron, or there is an iron deficiency. So ma-anemic ang humans, ma-anemic po ang plants. Okay, in continuation to the chemical basis of life, we have also discussed that matter occupies space and has mass, and the fundamental unit of matter is called atom. So in an atom, we have also discussed this in organic chemistry, right? We have three subatomic particles. So we have proton, the positively charged subatomic particle, then we have neutron, no charge or neutrally charged, and electron, the negatively charged atom. So remember, class, that at the center containing protons and neutrons, we call that the nucleus, okay? And surrounding the nucleus is the electron cloud region containing the electrons. So don't forget, okay? In the nucleus, it contains protons and neutrons, and they are at the center. While surrounding the nucleus is called the electron cloud region composed of electrons. Okay, then we have here atomic number. Atomic number is equal to the number of protons. But in the case of neutral atoms, protons is also equal to electrons. So let me repeat that. Atomic number indicates the number of protons. But if the atom is neutral, okay, then protons is also equal to the number of electrons. So we have here carbon, right? Carbon, the atomic number of carbon is 6. Therefore, there are also 6 protons and 6 electrons. Then we have atomic mass, mass of all subatomic particle, okay? Then we have neutrons. So neutrons is solved using this formula, atomic mass minus atomic number. So I hope you can still remember our organic chemistry. So in getting the number of neutrons, atomic mass minus atomic number. So if the given mass is 12, okay, and the atomic number is 6, so therefore, in getting the neutrons of carbon, we have 12 minus 6 is equal to 6. Okay, then here, electron levels or orbitals. So we have also discussed this in organic chemistry. The first level, it can hold a maximum of up to 2 electrons. The second level can hold a maximum of up to 8 electrons. Third level can hold a maximum of up to 8 electrons. Third level can hold a maximum of 18 electrons. So let me repeat that. The first level can hold a maximum of 2 electrons, second level 8 electrons, while third level can hold a maximum of 18 electrons, not 8 electrons, okay? 18 electrons. And we're very familiar with our orbitals. We have the s orbital, p orbital, d orbital, and f orbital. S orbital, the shape is spherical. Then we have p orbital, dumbbell shape, and we have the d orbital, elongated dumbbell shape, okay? And then in our orbitals, the orbitals are divided into shells. So we have there the first subshell, no? And then second subshell, third subshell. So muna ni siya, the first subshell can hold a maximum of 2 electrons, second subshell or second level 8 electrons, and third subshell a maximum of 18 electrons. So of course the rule, we have the Hund's rule. We have 3 rules or 3 principles to follow, right? We have the Aufbau principle, the Pauli exclusion principle, and the Hund's rule. In the Aufbau principle, we are given the pattern, right? So 1s is filled first, followed by 2s, followed by 2p, then followed by 3s, okay, followed by 3p, and so on and so forth. And then in the Pauli exclusion principle, it says that in one orbital, only 2 electrons should be filled. But we have also to consider that the 2 electrons must be in opposite spins. And then in the Hund's rule, okay, it is mentioned that before we're going to fill in the orbitals, we have to singly distribute the electrons so that each orbitals will be singly occupied with 1 electrons each. Now for the remaining electrons, that's the time that we're going to go back with the remaining orbitals to fill in the remaining electrons so that some of the orbitals will be doubly filled with electrons. So please review the Aufbau principle, Pauli exclusion principle, and the Hund's rule. Okay, so draw hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen. So I will not show you today. So maybe in our face-to-face meeting na lang. Then we have atomic bonds. So molecules, more than one atom is bonded together. So for example, we have hydrogen atom. So this is a hydrogen atom and another hydrogen atom. They are bonded together. So all together they form H2 molecules. Then we have the term covalent bond. And in organic chemistry, we're familiar that covalent bond refers to sharing of electrons, or covalent bonds form when two atoms share electrons to achieve stability. Okay? And then we have also the terms nonpolar covalent bonds and polar covalent bonds. So let me explain this one. Nonpolar covalent bond refers to equal sharing, okay? Equal sharing of electrons between atoms. So this happens when atoms have similar or identical electronegativity. So no partial charges form. So therefore, electrons are evenly distributed. For example, we have chlorine gas or two atoms of Cl. Okay? This means that two identical chlorine atoms share electrons equally. So just like our hydrogen atoms, they share electrons equally. Okay? So when we say when we say nonpolar covalent bonds, please remember this keyword, equal sharing of electrons. Now, in the case of polar covalent bond, there is unequal sharing of electrons. So it is opposite to the nonpolar, because nonpolar is equal sharing, while polar covalent, unequal sharing of electrons. So this occurs when one atom is more electronegative than the other. So they create partial charges. Okay, so this one, we can see that it creates partial charges. One side becomes slightly partially negative. So our oxygen here is partially negative, and the other slightly partially positive. So our partially positive are the hydrogen atoms. Okay, for example, yes, this one is water, H2O. The oxygen pulls electrons more strongly than hydrogen, creating a dipole. Okay, so let me repeat that. The oxygen pulls electrons more strongly than oxygen, creating a dipole. So please remember the difference between the two. Nonpolar covalent bonding, equal sharing of electrons. Polar covalent bonding, unequal sharing of electrons. So this creates partial charges like partially negative oxygen and partially positive hydrogen in the case of water. Okay, then why does this matter? Why do we have to discuss polarity? So it has something to do with solubility. So we're very familiar why oil doesn't mix with water. So nga na daw mantika, dili mo mix sa water. And it has also something to do with molecular interactions like hydrogen bonding. Then we have biological processes like nutrient transport and enzyme activity. Then we have ionic bonds. Okay, so one atom steals another electrons. So there is also an unequal attraction. For example, an ionic bond forms when electrons are transferred from one atom to another, creating charged particles called ions. Okay, so how does this work? So one atom loses electrons and becomes a positive ion. So in the case of this one, in the case of Na or sodium, it loses electrons, so therefore it becomes a positive ion or cation. Then another atom gains electrons. So what is this? The chlorine. Okay, and chlorine, it will gain electrons. So therefore chlorine becomes a negative ion, or we also call negative ion an ion. So they are oppositely charged ions which attracted with each other like magnets. So since the Na may lose man siyang electron, so it will become positive ion. While CCl, may gain man siyang electron, so it becomes a negative ion. So positive and negative charge, they will be attracted with each other like magnets. So sodium gives away one electron and becomes Na+. So chlorine takes that electron from Na and becomes Cl-. So Na plus and Cl- will stick together to form table salt. Okay? Then we also have here number of bonds. So So the number of bonds depends on the number of unpaired electrons. If more than one, an atom can form. So we have multiple single bonds, double bonds, and triple bonds. So we have here water, ammonia, and methane. All of these are formed through covalent bonding. And if we're going to draw that, I will just show you during the face-to-face, no? These are all single bonds. And we have here double bond. There is a presence of double bond in carbon dioxide. Okay? And then we also have triple bonds in the case of alkynes. So don't forget, no, our alkanes in organic chemistry, all of them are single bonds, while the alkenes in organic chemistry, they have double bonds, while alkynes in organic chemistry, they have triple bonds. Okay, so we have here chemical reactions occurs when one substance combines with another. So what do we mean by chemical reactions first? A chemical reaction is a process where substances, called reactants, are transformed into new substances called products by rearranging atoms and changing chemical bonds. So please take note, okay? It is a process where substances called reactants are transformed into new substances called products by rearranging atoms and changing chemical bonds. So one substance combines with another. This is a synthesis or combination reaction. So number one refers to synthesis or combination reaction. So this happens when two or more reactants join to form a single product. So for example, we have nitrogen and hydrogen gases combine to form ammonia. So ammonia is a key fertilizer component. So number two, we have one substance is broken into another. So this refers to decomposition. Okay, decompose ba from the word decompose. So decomposition reaction. So this happens when a compound breaks apart into simpler substances. So for example, we have calcium carbonate decomposes into calcium oxide and carbon dioxide. So calcium oxide and carbon dioxide are important in soil pH management. So let me repeat that. Ang number one, no, one substance combines with another. This is called synthesis or combination reaction, and it happens two or more reactants join to form a single product. Pero dito is number two, one substance is broken down into another. So this refers to decomposition reaction. Okay, so meaning this happens when a compound breaks apart into simpler substances. And then we have the third one, chemical bonds are broken and other bonds form. So this describes the core mechanism of all chemical reactions. So this happens when old bonds between atoms are broken and new ones are formed to create different substances. For example, in photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water molecules break apart and rearrange to form glucose, diba? So, unsa man kay chemical bonds are broken and other bonds form. So, unsa may ni break and deform. So, ang carbon dioxide and ang water molecules ni break apart and then they rearrange to form glucose and oxygen. So, this is in the case of photosynthesis. Okay, then we have water as a solvent. So, life is based on water because it is a great solvent, or it is our universal solvent, meaning this dissolves other substances easily. So why do we need to study water as a solvent? Because it is connected by hydrogen bonds. Okay, so meaning we have weak attractions between partially negative oxygen and partially positive hydrogen of another polar molecule. Okay, so we have here water is polar, and hydrogen bonds form between water molecules. What do we mean by water is polar? So polarity means that a molecule has regions of partial positive and partial negative charge due to unequal sharing of electrons. So pareha ato akong kita ganina, no? So ang oxygen is partially negative while the hydrogens are partially positive in the case of water molecules. So a water molecule is two hydrogen atoms and one oxygen atoms, right? So oxygen is more electronegative than hydrogen because it pulls electrons closer. So therefore, this causes oxygen to have partially negative charge while hydrogen atoms to have partially positive charges. So if we're going to go back in shape sa water molecule, what have you noticed? Water has a bent shape, okay, bent shape, and charges are unevenly distributed, making it a polar molecule. Okay, let's go back. So letter B, hydrogen bonds form between water molecules. So because water is polar, the positive hydrogen end of one molecule is attracted to the negative oxygen end of the other. So this attraction is called hydrogen bond. So hydrogen bonds are intermolecular forces between molecules, but not actual electron sharing or transferring. They are weaker than covalent bonds. So ang hydrogen bonds are weaker than covalent bonds. So, however, they are strong enough to give water its unique properties. Okay? So hydrogen bonds, okay? Remember that hydrogen bonds form between water molecules. And remember, hydrogen bonds are intermolecular forces between molecules, but not actual electron sharing or transferring. And remember that they are weaker than covalent bonds. And because of hydrogen bonds, they are strong enough to give water its unique properties. And we are going to discuss why water is unique, or the properties of water. So because of small size, bent shape, and polarity, what we can say that water is cohesive, water is adhesive, and water is denser as liquid than solid, and water also absorbs large amounts of energy. So we have the term adhesion and cohesion, okay? So when we say water is cohesive, meaning water molecules stick to each other due to hydrogen bonding. So why does this matter? So this cohesion creates a surface tension. So kita mo ani. So there is an insect that is able to walk in the water, no, because of surface tension. Light objects do not fall through through the water's surface because of surface tension. And again, the cohesion creates surface tension, so allowing water to form droplets and support small insects like water striders to walk in water. Then we have water is adhesive, meaning water molecules stick to other surfaces, especially those that are polar or charged. So adhesion helps water climb up narrow tubes to spread across surfaces. So, for example, in agriculture, adhesion supports capillary action, which allows water to move through soil pores and into plant roots. Okay, then we have water is denser as liquid than as solid. So meaning, unlike most substances, ice floats. Okay, we're familiar with ice, ba? Familiar ta sa ice? Ice floats because solid water, or ice, which is the solid water, is less dense than liquid water. So, ano man yung mahitabo? In ice, hydrogen bonds lock water molecules into a rigid, open structure that takes up more space. So why does this matter? This prevents lakes and ponds from freezing solid, insulating aquatic life below. So, in agricultural relevance, this protects aquatic ecosystems and help regulate microclimates in farming environment. Okay ha? So, when we say water is denser as liquid than as a solid, for example, we have ang ice, kuno, float siya because ang ice is a solid water and solid water is less dense than liquid water. Okay? Then why does this matter daw? Because this prevents lakes and ponds from freezing solid, so insulating aquatic life below. So, kabantay mo kung in other countries, no, if makakita tayo videos sa other countries, even if mag-ice ilang lakes and ponds, ang mga aquatic animals below, wala na sila na frozen. Okay? Naglihok-lihok na gyapon na sila. Ang sa surface ra ang na frozen ang iyahang water, but sa ilalim na, the aquatic organisms are still alive. Then we have water absorbs large amounts of energy, or we're referring to high specific heat. So meaning water can absorb a lot of heat without a big temperature change. So why does this matter? It stabilizes temperatures in organisms and environments. For example, sa agriculture, high specific heat of water helps buffer temperature fluctuations in crops, soil, and post-harvest storage, so critical for maintaining quality of shelf life. Okay, so let me just review, no? When we say cohesion as a property of water, we can say that cohesion refers to water sticking to itself. Then we have adhesion, water sticks to other surfaces. Then water is denser as liquid and solid. We could say that ice floats due to lower density. And we have high energy absorption, or high specific heat in water. We can say that this resists temperature change. So in return, this stabilizes crop and soil temperatures. Okay, let us proceed to energy. So energy is the capacity to do work, and there are two types of energy: potential energy and kinetic energy. Okay, in potential energy, this is the energy that's stored and has the potential to do work later. And we have kinetic energy, this is the energy of movement. Okay, energy of movement when something is actively happening. Okay, so in potential energy, we can see in this illustration that electrons in outer shell have more potential energy. So electrons have the greatest potential energy in the outermost electron shells. While in the kinetic energy, this is energy of movement and measured as temperature. So low temperature objects is equal to slower movement. So let me give you an example, no? Example of potential energy, we have ATP or adenosine triphosphate. And the phosphate bonds in ATP store chemical energy. So, when ATP is broken down into ADP plus inorganic phosphate, that energy is released to power cellular processes. Then we also have glucose molecules, for example. Glucose stores energy in its chemical bonds, which is later released during cellular respiration. So those are examples of potential energy. How about examples of kinetic energy? So we have muscle contraction. So myosin heads moving along actin filaments use kinetic energy to generate force. But we also have another example, ion transport. So ions like potassium ions and calcium ions moving through protein channels during nerve impulses or stomatal opening. Okay. So next, let's proceed to laws of thermodynamics. So we have here the first and second law. So in the first law of thermodynamics, it says that energy is conserved. Okay, energy is conserved. So it means that energy cannot be created or destroyed. So it is only transformed from one form to another. For example, in biology, plants convert light energy into chemical energy during photosynthesis. Another example, we have cells transform chemical energy in glucose into ATP during respiration. Okay? So the key idea of this first law of thermodynamics is that the total energy stays constant, but it can change forms, okay, from light to chemical, then to kinetic. So another example, we have sunlight absorbed by chlorophyll is stored in glucose. So that glucose is later broken down to release energy for growth, movement, or reproduction. And then we have the second law of thermodynamics. So less usable energy after reaction. So what it means? It means every energy transformation makes some energy less usable, often lost as heat. So in biology, when glucose is broken down, not all energy becomes ATP. Some is lost as heat. Okay? Then the energy transfer in ecosystem is inefficient only by approximately 10% moves up its trophic level. So the key idea of the second law of thermodynamics is that the systems tend toward disorder or entropy and usable energy decreases over time. So for example, we have during cellular respiration, glucose is converted to ATP, but some energy escapes as heat, increasing entropy in the system. So, in summary, no, ang first law is conservation of energy. First law of thermodynamics is conservation of energy. So, energy changes form, but not the amount. So, in the second law, this refers to entropy, no, meaning energy becomes less usable over time. Okay, let's proceed. So, carbon in organic chemistry, ito naman yung na-discuss, no? Carbon is the most versatile atom, is the most and also the most special element, no, in organic chemistry. So we have also learned in organic chemistry that carbon has 4 valence electron. It can form any version of covalent bonds. So carbons can link in a linear molecule like octane. Okay, so octane is an alkane, right? So ato na po nang na-discuss organic chemistry. Then we have carbons linked in a ring. So they are special because they can form simple to complex molecules and they can also form ring just like this one, the glucose. Then we have here beginning of life. We're almost done, no? Hapit na tamuman. Beginning of life. So it says here that science does not rely on faith, and then the origin of life is philosophy and not science. So let us discuss this one. Unsa man jud ang science, di ba? Previous meeting we have mentioned that science is a systematic study of a natural phenomenon or is systematic study of the natural world. So, meaning science is a method for understanding the natural world, not a belief system. So, in Christianity, no, we believe na life began because of the creation of God. Diba? In Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. So creation of life happens because of God's creation. But according to science, no, the question of how life began is still unanswered. So it may never be fully answered because we can't directly observe or recreate the exact conditions of early Earth. So at some point, the discussion shifts from science into philosophy. So the first one we have, science does not rely on faith. Basta may pasabot ani, science does not rely on faith. It means science depends on evidence and testable explanations. I repeat, science depends on evidence and testable explanations. So they do not rely on belief without proof. Okay? So what method is used? So hypothetical deductive reasoning. So scientists make a hypothesis, test it, and refine or reject it based on results. So if something can't be tested or observed, it falls outside the strict boundaries of science. So muna siya ibut pasabot sa science does not rely on faith because kanang belief without proof, dili guna siya acceptable. That is according to science. And we have here, no one really knows how life began. So we have theories, no? Like the primordial soup hypothesis, hydrothermal vent theory, RNA world hypothesis. We have theories na nag-exist daw ni sila but no direct proof. So muna siya no ang theory. They tend to happen or they tend to explain a general phenomenon but no direct proof. So the early Earth environment is uncertain. So we can only make educated guesses or hypotheses based on geology, chemistry, and astronomy. So without certainty about those conditions, we can't run a perfect experiment to recreate life origin. Then we have origin of life as philosophy. So nga namang philosophy ang gisigutan dire. If a question can't be tested or falsified, it becomes a matter of reasoning, speculation, and worldview, which is philosophy's domain. So for example, why is there life at all? Nga naman yun na ay kinabuhi. Nga naman yun nangabuhi ta dire. Okay, so this is more of a philosophical than scientific because it's about meaning and purpose, not just mechanism. Okay, so why does this matter to agriculture and forestry students taking biology? So this teaches us intellectual humility, knowing the limits of science. So it also helps separate empirical science, what we can measure, no? Empirical science, this refers to what we can measure, from metaphysical questions. So when we say metaphysical questions, this refers to what we can only speculate about. So it frames the origin of life as an open question, encouraging curiosity without pretending we have all the answers. Okay, now let's proceed to the theory of abiogenesis. So when we say abiogenesis, this refers to the idea that life arose spontaneously from non-living matter through natural chemical processes. So sa Bisaya pa, ang life kuno, kay ang ubang life daw gikan kuno sa non-living matter. So the idea that life arose spontaneously from non-living matter through natural chemical processes, we call that theory of abiogenesis. So we have here the primordial soup concept. So concept rin siya ha. Primordial soup concept, it is believed that the early Earth's oceans were thought to contain a soup, sabaw ba? Okay, soup or murag sabaw. So ang oceans daw, they thought to contain a soup of simple chemicals. So with the right conditions, okay, for example, right conditions like energy from lightning, UV light, volcanic heat, these chemicals could react to form organic molecules. So from amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, are one of the first key steps toward life. Okay, and then we have here Miller-Urey experiment in the year 1953. So the scientists Stanley Miller and Harold Urey recreated a hypothetical early Earth atmosphere in the lab. So ilang try or recreate ko no ang hypothetical early Earth atmosphere sa lab. So they passed electrical sparks to simulate lightning through a mixture of gases and water. So this results to several amino acids which is formed spontaneously. So what is the significance of this? It showed that basic building blocks of life could form under natural conditions. But what is the challenge, no? Ang challenge ani, making amino acids is one thing, but forming complex molecules like DNA, RNA, and proteins spontaneously is far more difficult. Okay, so para nila, sa ilang experiment, yes, naka-create sila or naka-form sila og several amino acids, but ang complex molecules like DNA, RNA, and proteins, maglisod gyud sila. Okay, so therefore, scientists still debate how these molecules assembled into self-replicating systems and whether life began in oceans, near hydrothermal vents, or elsewhere. So, ang theory of abiogenesis, wala gyud ni siya, na-disprove ni siya, okay, through the experiment of Louis Pasteur, di ba? Louis Pasteur, iyahang yung na disprove na ang theory of abiogenesis is not possible. So, according to Louis Pasteur, if inyong gilantaw tong video, dili possible ang abiogenesis. Okay? So, what is only possible? Biogenesis, which means life only comes from life. So, wala joy kinabuhi nagikan sa non-living matter. So, kaya remember, the theory of abiogenesis, na-disprove ni siya sa experiment ni Louis Pasteur. Okay, next we have life from asteroids. So, the core idea of this is that life didn't necessarily start from, life didn't necessarily start on Earth. So instead, some of the ingredients or microbes may have arrived here from space, from outer space. So hitching a ride on asteroids, comets, or meteorites. Okay? So, what are the pros of this? So, scientists consider it as plausible. So, unsa may pros ani na belief, no? So, they said that amino acids found on asteroids, na daw amino acids sa asteroids. So, meteorites like the Murchison meteorite have been found to contain amino acids, so the same building blocks of proteins found in living things. Then, microbes can survive in space. So, ang mga mikrobyo daw makasurvive sa outer space. So, experiments on the International Space Station show that certain bacteria can persist for long periods in the harsh vacuum and radiation of space. Then, another one, we have planetary protection protocols. So, space agencies take extra precautions to avoid contaminating Mars or other celestial bodies, so which shows scientists take the responsibility of life transfer seriously. But, unsa may con aning na pagtuon, no? It's really hard to imagine that there is survival and transfer. So even though some microbes can survive in outer space, the journey from one planet to another through extreme heat, cold, and radiation would be incredibly harsh. So the leap from possible to probable is still a huge question. Okay? Then we have hydrothermal origins. So the core idea of this is that life may have begun to deep sea hydrothermal vent. So ang life ko, no, siguro nag-start daw sa deep sea hydrothermal vents. So these are cracks in the ocean floor where superheated mineral rich water gushes out. So what are the pros of this, or why scientists consider it? So ang deep sea hydrothermal vents daw are energy-rich environment because these vents release heat and chemicals like hydrogen sulfide that could power chemical reactions, which is a potential energy source for early life. Another one, raw ingredients for life are found in deep sea hydrothermal vents. So meaning the mineral-rich water could support amino acid synthesis and other organic molecules providing the building blocks of life. But we have the cons. So it lacks of stability of organic molecules due to heat. So it has heat instability. So the same high temperatures that drive reactions can also break down delicate organic molecules before they assemble into more complex structures like proteins or nucleic acid. So, hydrothermal vents today host unique ecosystems, including bacteria and archaea that thrive without sunlight using chemosynthesis instead of photosynthesis. So, this shows that life can exist in extreme environments, which expands our thinking about where life might arise, even on other planets or moons. Okay? So, that would be all for lesson 2. Just read or just listen to this video lecture. Best of luck. And for the next meeting, we will discuss about lesson 3 na. Okay, goodbye.